and welcome to another episode of The Arts Are the Answer, a co-production of the Arts Council for Monterey County and Access Monterey Peninsula. My name is Steve Elzy. I'm the executive producer for AMP.
And I'm Paulette Lynch, Executive Director of the Arts Council for Monterey County. In these next 30 minutes, you'll meet organizers, presenters, artists from all over the county.
And they will all show you how the arts bring joy and vitality into our lives.
It all starts right now. I'm here today with Gail Higginbotham. She is the founder and the artistic director for the wonderful Ariel Theatrical. They have a beautiful theater in downtown Salinas, right in the heart of Main Street, and they are doing amazing things there and at other sites throughout the county. Gail, thank you so much for being with us here today.
My pleasure.
Gail, let's get started with how you got started. Right now you have been teaching and you have this nonprofit and you have productions going on. What would you think is really the beginning of all that?
The beginning was that I was a mom with little kids, and I had grown up in LA. I went to the theater in LA, did theater from the time before I can remember. So when I moved to Salinas in 1975, with the first two of my to-be-5 children, there wasn't any place to take them to the theater. There really weren't options that I could see. Mm-hmm. So that sort of simmered in my consciousness, and then as they grew up and were getting a little older, people asked me to do things at their classes and whatever, and it was the classic kitchen table start. Bunch of moms around a table figuring out how to put on something with children.
And now how long has Ariel Theatrical been downtown Salinas?
We moved into the building that we have in February of 2001.
But you had started earlier.
We were in garages and barns and driveways and streets and basements and attics and empty warehouses for 15 years.
So Gail, I know that a lot of what you are doing, it's more than just a class or a bunch of classes. There's a whole philosophy of life behind everything that you do, and I've seen it in action, but I've even seen kids now grow up with you over the years. Can you talk about that philosophy of I can do hard things? What does that mean to you, and how do the kids react?
Well, the I can do hard things started with a story years and years ago. Because every rehearsal, every performance, anytime we have the children in the building, we always begin with a thought, a quote, a story that pertains to a principle.
Okay.
It pertains to a principle, and then we look at how we can apply that principle to the rehearsal process and how they can apply that to their lives. So I had encountered the story. It was kind of moving. I told it, and didn't really think about it a lot. It came up, I'd tell it every once in a while. And then years later, I got a call from a young woman, now grown, whose life had taken some pretty difficult turns, and she said, that story saved my life.
Wow.
You need to make sure that everyone who comes in that building hears that story. So since that time, I make a point of making sure that it's a part of every cast's experience.
Wow.
A real quick story, little girl, age of the children that we have. She's bullied at school, they ridicule her hair, her clothes, her, whatever, every single day. And it's so painful, she finally says to her mother, I can't do it, I can't go back to school anymore, it's too hard, it hurts too much. And the mother doesn't say, not that bad, and she doesn't say it'll be better tomorrow. She says, you're right, it's hard, but you can do hard things.
Wow.
She makes a little, puts a note in her lunch, puts it on the mirror, puts it in, and the little girl grows up and does hard things. So there's a second part of the story as an adult where then she turns around and uses that same frame for a neighbor woman whose life is falling apart. And so there's power in truth, and it is a true story. And so when the story is told to the children or to the groups of adults, it's interesting to feel what happens in the room. There's a distillation of truth, and they recognize it. And so invariably when the kids are asked at the end of a program or years later they come back, what they remember, the I can do hard things will come up with, it got me through fill in the blank, some really difficult thing in their lives. So that's the foundation.
I know when we go see your productions, we're completely mesmerized. We're aware that there's a gazillion kids up there, but they're all acting and they're all doing so many different things on that stage, all in sync. And I really just marvel at that, at your ability to bring so much out of everyone. And I'm sure that philosophy has something to do with it. But what else is going on there? My understanding is that you're really layering in all the details so that the little ones know what to do and they feel just as much a part of it as the leads and things. How do you do that?
Because we start out with, it's not about getting the part you want, it's about wanting the part you get.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Well, yeah, that's one.
That's great.
The philosophy is that you matter because you intrinsically matter, and your being on that stage is a part of the whole. So it's not about being the whole of the part, it's about being part of the whole. And we have a phrase for everything. And so from the beginning, if you're in the picture that the audience sees, then you matter. It doesn't matter that you're the one that's talking. If you're looking at the person that's talking, then you're making that picture that the audience sees, and that action of looking at the point of focus is just as important as the person who is the focus in that moment. And so from the first day that we talk about that, we don't call them the leads, we don't call them the stars.
Okay.
There's no nomenclature that way. A child may have a lead in this production and may be the fourth soldier on the third line in the next one. It depends. There's no trajectory necessarily for kids. So our goal is to have everyone grow. So
Beautiful.
how do you define success? That everybody can hit this note? Well, no. If this child comes in and is so shy that I never actually see their face, this is what and that child gets to hear, then that's a success. And so we look at each child individually. What do we need at the end of this program? You know, what has to happen for that child to feel like we've made a difference in their skill level, in their ability to present themselves, their ability to feel that they are learning and growing.
That's wonderful. Now, you've done so many classes and productions over the years. What's your favorite, or one that really comes to mind because so many of the kids liked it so much?
Narnia is the hands down
Okay.
favorite.
I can imagine.
So we have kids, some people have done Narnia 5 times.
Oh.
And it only comes up every 4 years. From being a bunny, a 4-year-old bunny,
Oh, that's exquisite.
all the way to being one of the adults in the show. So Narnia is enormously compelling because of the cosmic battle of the story. And everyone deals with the conflict between good and evil in some way in their lives. And if they're not dealing with it, they ought to wake up and realize that it's there.
Yeah.
So it's epic in the message and it's immediate in the application. So, and they love it from a literary standpoint. They just find it very engaging.
I think of it as so challenging, but that they want that challenge.
It's tough to stage, especially in the as wonderful it is to be in a building of our own after all those vagabond years. Our stage doesn't have very much in the way of wings, and it doesn't have flies, and doesn't have hydraulics, and so to go from the professor's house to the snowy filled Narnia to the witch's castle to the Tumnus cave, it's a complicated show. It's a very complicated show, and it's challenging for everybody. But what's become Ariel's theme song is the song from Narnia. I got permission from the playwright, the composer.
That never happens.
I just took a chance. Thomas Tierney looked him up in the New York City phone book and called him and said, the song is to make the world right again.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And so I asked if we could, I told him the impact that this song had, and that as the lion sings it to the 4 children who have finally made it through, they've been through battles and horribly frightening things and all those terrors, and they finally make it to Cair Paravel, and then he starts the song that says, now the real adventure starts. Well, weren't those the adventures? No, the real adventure is what kind of people they're going to be. Are they going to govern well and wisely?
Wow.
And so we use that, the real adventure is how you're going to govern your life.
So I wonder, I imagine it's not any one thing that really compels the parents to be there for you as volunteers, as donors, even after their kids have all grown and gone. They're still there for you, and foundations want to be your partner, and so many do. But I know even with that, your vision is still bigger, still growing. Can you talk about where you see Ariel and the work that you're doing 5 or 10 years from now, and what's it going to take to move along that path?
We need to do a better job of acquainting more people with what we do.
Yeah.
You speak nicely of us.
Sure do.
You've been watching for years.
Yes.
But there are a lot of people in the community that aren't aware that we've been here for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously we need to do a better job of making ourselves known. An emphasis that's becoming increasingly important to us is working with the high school age and young
Okay.
adult, because our mission statement about using the art and discipline of theater to not to create actors, but to create principled people. They want to go on and be actors, that's great. But everybody has to go on and live their lives.
Yeah.
And so we want them to live it as a principled person, a person with integrity, with responsibility, a sense of accountability. Well, those things don't come naturally. And certainly culturally, there are a lot of messages that don't support that. And so we have what we call the Green Shirt program, and where we bring in teenagers and they become part of the Ariel experience for younger children. And part of that is that, the toilet paper has to get reloaded.
Get things done.
Yeah.
The behind the scenes.
But they need to think about that.
Yeah,
That things
yeah.
just don't automatically happen.
Yes,
If you
yeah,
don't sweep the
yeah.
floor, it's going to look pretty disgusting
Yeah.
really quickly. Who's going to sweep? Whose job description has sweeping the floor in it?
Yeah.
When you don't have a janitor at your building, that everybody is responsible at every layer. Looking at, I take out trash. There's nobody's too important to take out trash.
Yeah.
So understanding that you learn how the world works by working together and making things work. So increasingly we're focused on that age group because they're the rising workforce.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the workers in the businesses tomorrow? Who are going to be the volunteers that are in the nonprofits that we're all trying to support? If that sense of stewardship and that sense of responsibility isn't cultivated when they're young, someone has to raise the rising generation, raise their sights.
Well, I really appreciate all that you're already doing, and I just wish you all the luck in the world. This is such a great, beautiful project. I run around telling everybody the arts are the answer, and I think a lot about what you're doing at Ariel. And I see it all the time, that the arts are the answer to working through our greatest obstacles, like the kids who are bullied or just need a little bit more time, and to our greatest opportunity, having the world and the workforce and everything else that we need, that we think we want, but we need a little help. So Ariel's a beautiful example of all of that, and thank you so much for your leadership. I know that, like so many founders and directors, you've done your share of leaping over gates and crashing through doors or whatever else needs to happen, and I know the kids really appreciate it, and I know their parents do too. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Paulette.
you.
This is very exciting for me. I have in the studio today Mark Baur, who is the Executive Director and Artist in Residence at the Museum of Monterey. Mark, welcome to the Arts of the Answer.
Thank you, thank you.
You do so many things. Let's talk about them one by one. You're the Artist in Residence over there. Tell us about some of your projects.
Well, one of the projects that we did, I'm a writer and a video maker, so I'm a video artist.
All right.
And one of the first things that we did last year, or the year before, is the 100 Story Project, which is 106 people, 134 stories, and a 30-hour running time.
Wow.
And how that now works, that's all available online. It plays on AMP all the time. And it is now using it in shorter modules where it's applicable in the museum. So that's an example of being an artist in residence. It's just a different, the artist in residence theory as an executive director is not a very common one, but we found that for the Museum of Monterey to be good, starting with Lisa Casino before me, who was a dynamic creative talent, and hopefully after me will be someone who will put their own stamp on it, but it allows us to really actively make something exciting beyond our budgetary limitations. So everybody has budget issues.
Sure.
But the responsibility to creating public value has to transcend your budget. So having an artist in there who can bring their special magic, whatever that is a formula that has worked well for us.
Now, I remember seeing the other day that you had some Joe cupcake stuff going on at the museum. Is that also applicable, or is that more of a lark for you?
No, actually, that is my primary. The museum is more of a lark. I don't want to say that too loudly, but I'm an artist first, so
sure, absolutely.
And Joe Cupcake is a Proustian effort. It's 6 hours. It's a video collage. It's spoken word, and music by the great Arthur Barrow, who was Frank Zappa's sideman for many, many years.
Wow.
And a composer in his own right. So we've collaborated over the years. And so this was a multi-year, very complex project that now I'm trying to unveil
in pieces?
In pieces, and find the proper distribution and the proper place for it, because it's an art project and not necessarily a film project. So
okay.
The idea of creating for museums is a bit of a different art form than creating movies for a theater. So
it must be.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm breaking. It feels like new territory for me. I'm sure there's a million people doing similar things, but I don't think so.
Okay.
So anyway, Joe Cupcake is that's very exciting to me, and then I'm moving now into multiple screen. In other words, I want to take what I learned about multiple layering and multiple imaging and spoken word and take that onto installation art for public spaces.
Wow.
So what I use the term video sculpture, as you might see in an airport, or as you see. So I want to use spoken, but that's primarily a medium that's been used for either design or used for advertising, or used for really arty projects where you have the weird things happening on a lot of screen. And I want to use it as a storytelling mechanism.
Really?
So that people can have a longer story, but can walk in a public space and see something for 4 or 5 minutes at a time in a blast, and be kind of astounded, A, by the fabulous technology, and then B, by the appropriate messaging. So that's the future for me.
And you're probably not prepared for this question, but I just want to ask you, do you know who Scott Snibbe is then?
Yeah, so I was looking at Scott Snibbe's work at LAX last week, and again, I want to do that.
Okay, okay.
And,
it's cool stuff, man.
It's very cool stuff.
And are you going to also incorporate that interactive? I mean, he's got it so that people are walking in some exhibits, walking by.
So that's not my thing. My thing is, I'm a storyteller. I'm working a project now that we just did a grant for with Alan Sadowski, who's the head of the creative writing department at San Jose State. Who's just written a series of poems called Charts, End of Days. So what happened with Alan is he was following, I'm forgetting the Reverend's name up in Oakland, who was predicting the end of the world.
Right.
And so he's following this and writing this, and the day the world was supposed to end, Alan's gallbladder gave out and he almost died.
Oh my gosh.
So his world almost ended. So it was kind of this delicious irony to start this piece that's both talking about social, political, ecological devastation, and also rebirth. So this allows you, by using this poetry, charting his return to health, his return to sanity, whatever, it's a way to use multiple screens, again with this poetry, to discuss very serious social issues, to do it on a very personal level where the I meets the we. That's, otherwise if you're not doing that, it becomes indulgent. But if it's very personal, but you're talking about a personal you that is the personal we, it's a very powerful storytelling mechanism. And so that you can have the dark and the light on the same screen, the poem and the spoken and the written word on the same screen, and contrasting ideas and choices on this beautiful, this stuff called planar mosaic. These people who are making these fabulous screens that you'll see in an airport or something.
Right.
My God, what a beautiful, fabulous medium. But I've
Yes.
never seen it quite used like this. So it's very serious intent. And then this brings us back to the museum.
Right.
And so the intent of any piece of art like this, it's meant for public space, is to have the following follow-up discussion.
Okay.
So the future of the Museum of Monterey, we're one of the, again, a museum has to work on many levels and please many constituencies.
Right.
But one of the things where we're focused is to creating a center of excellence.
Oh.
We're in, so we're in the Stanton Center, and we want to create the Stanton Center of Excellence and really dedicate this to Gordon Paul Smith, who was the man who created the Stanton Center. It was his vision.
Right.
He recently passed away, but he was a dynamic figure and left a, he'd come in his little walking suit. He was close to 90 plus years old, and he'd come in and he'd check on me constantly, and he kind of left this, I have a big responsibility to follow through on his vision.
Oh,
And
okay. So his legacy is in your hands.
It's in many people's hands, but I feel very personally responsible, as do many others feel very personal. It's a very personal thing to carry on his legacy. So a center of excellence, and what we mean by a center of excellence is a place where, first of all, local thinkers, global ideas.
Okay.
We're blessed to be in an area where, with our intellectual core here, Miss, Naval Postgraduate School, University of California at Monterey Bay, people who have come here by choice from all over the world,
Right.
Silicon Valley, plus the scientific and the marine, as a marine center, as a marine studies center. So to be a place in the community where people come together to discuss these important ideas, but more importantly, what we find here is that the artist needs the scientist needs the poet,
Right.
the poet needs the professor,
Right.
and they want to, so people tend to be stovepiped into their own institutions. By creating the Center of Excellence is a place where we can introduce people to each other, and this is already starting to happen through our programming. The events become even as less important than the networking of the meetings and the people meeting the people here going on, and that's very exciting. So that's with this project I'm talking about,
Center of Excellence.
or with the just this multi-screen project.
Oh, okay.
It's about, again, the paneling that takes place afterwards and the conversation that takes place afterwards. And then the other piece of the Center of Excellence brings us to AMP. And again, I don't know if your viewers know, but AMP has moved to Heritage Harbor, which is within walking distance of the museum. And we're been hammering out a partnership to put the cameras in the museum, so that all these conversations can be put together and viewed by the community.
Yes,
so this
very
really
important.
becomes for the community, by the community. And that is powerful and progressive.
Mark, there's so many great ideas. You are a font of wonderful ideas and innovation, and I love talking to you about your art. You are just a real resource here. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us here on The Arts Are the Answer, and we really look forward to seeing this entire thing blossom as we know it will. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and museumofmonterey.org, we need you.
Hello, my name is Bernix, the Community Outreach Coordinator for Monterey County. Today, in this episode, students from the Ali Sal High School performed during a community event. Their teacher, Ramon Silva, works with them throughout the year with their high school dance program. They are also invited to participate at different community events. Enjoy.
Thank you very, very much for watching.
We hope you enjoyed the show. We know that the arts are magical, as you can see, but they don't happen by magic alone.
That's why we invite you to get involved. Become a volunteer, a sponsor, in front of the camera, behind the camera, if you want to meet an artist, or go see an artistic performance.
Or you can just find us on Facebook.
Thanks for watching.